A homestead operating under a debt-based system mirroring the modern monetary system would be a slow, grinding descent into servitude. The illusion of prosperity would exist only on the surface, while the underlying mechanics of debt accumulation would slowly consume the household from within. It would appear functional at first, but over time, the family would find themselves trapped, working not to build real wealth or self sufficiency, but merely to service the ever growing debt that has become the foundation of their existence. This is the same way nations, once sovereign and productive, become economic slaves to central banks, creditors, and financial institutions. At the start, the father and mother, instead of basing their homestead on direct productivity and real assets, decide to leverage their resources. They take out loans, perhaps from a neighbor, a local trader, or even a faceless lender they never meet. In their minds, this is progress. They can expand their operations immediately rather than waiting to accumulate resources naturally. They buy livestock, build a larger barn, and fill the pantry with goods they haven't yet earned. The children marvel at their sudden abundance, unaware that none of it is actually theirs. This is the same way a nation borrows for infrastructure, military spending, and welfare programs, creating the illusion of economic prosperity while secretly mortgaging its future. At first, everything seems fine. The homestead operates, the animals produce, and food is on the table. But soon, the first payments are due. Now, a portion of their productivity is no longer their own. It belongs to the lender. The father works harder, the mother takes on additional tasks, and yet they are no richer. No matter how much they produce, a portion is siphoned off before they can even use it. The children start noticing. Despite working harder, their parents seem more stressed, more tired. The homestead no longer exists for the family's benefit, it exists to keep up with the debt. This mirrors the modern economy, where citizens work not to accumulate real wealth, but to pay interest on loans, mortgages, and taxes that fund an ever expanding government controlled by the same banks that create the debt. As more expenses arise, more loans are needed. The father reassures everyone that this is normal. We'll grow our way out of it, he says. As long as we keep producing, we'll be fine. But the problem is clear. The debt always grows faster than production. Interest compounds. A small loan turns into a mountain of obligations. Suddenly, they're not borrowing to expand anymore. They're borrowing just to stay afloat. The system has trapped them. Instead of making real choices, every decision is dictated by what the lenders will allow. The father cannot invest in new tools unless the lender agrees. The mother cannot set aside extra food because it must be sold to cover interest. Their supposed ownership of the homestead is an illusion. It belongs to their creditors. This is precisely how nations fall into financial bondage, where central banks dictate policy, corporations control resources, and sovereignty disappears under the weight of unpayable debt. The children growing up in this system do not learn self-sufficiency. Instead, they learn dependency. When they need something, they do not think about producing it. They think about borrowing for it. Instead of fixing a broken fence, they finance a new one. Instead of growing more food, they buy it on credit. The younger ones, seeing no alternative, assume this is just how life works. The same way generations of citizens are born into national debt, never questioning why they must pay interest on money created out of nothing, these children will inherit the homestead's obligations without realizing they were trapped before they were even born. Then comes the crisis. A bad harvest, a sickness among the livestock, or an unexpected expense. The family needs help, but now no one will lend to them. Their debts are too high. They must sell something. Maybe a field, maybe some animals, maybe their own labor. One child might be sent to work for another household, just to keep the interest payments up. The homestead shrinks, its output decreases, and yet the debt remains. No matter how much they lose, they still owe. This is exactly how countries collapse under debt. When recessions hit, governments must cut services, sell state assets, and impose austerity, not to benefit the people, but to ensure the creditors are paid. The nation itself is carved apart, its resources privatized, its sovereignty eroded, all so that the debt cycle can continue. At the final stage, the homestead is no longer a homestead. It is a debt farm. The family works not for themselves, but for their lenders. Every improvement they make, every additional effort, only ensures that the debt system continues. If they try to break free, perhaps by refusing to pay, they will be evicted, just as nations that refuse to service their debts face sanctions, economic warfare, or direct intervention. The family, once sovereign, now lives at the mercy of forces they cannot control. This is the reality of debt based systems, whether on a homestead or on a national scale. It is the transformation of productive people into economic slaves, where hard work does not lead to prosperity, but to deeper enslavement. The system is designed not to free them, but to keep them trapped, ensuring that those who control the debt also control the future. In the end, they own nothing and they are not happy. They are exhausted, broken, and powerless. That is the inevitable fate of any society built on debt.